Welcome to the Cool Tools Show. I'm Mark Frauenfelder, Editor-in-Chief of Cool Tools, a website of tool recommendations written by our readers. You can find us at cool-tools.org. I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin Kelly, founder of Cool Tools. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, it's great to be here.
In each episode of the Cool Tools Show, Kevin and I talk to a guest about some of his or her favorite uncommon and uncommonly good tools they think others should know about. Our guest this week is Ian Charnas. Ian is an engineer and YouTuber who co-founded Sears ThinkBox, a 7-story makerspace at Case Western Reserve University that is free and open to the public. His YouTube channel features hilarious inventions like a real-life Mario Kart, an invisibility shield, and roller skating with a jetpack. Hey, Ian, how's it going?
Terrific. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Yes, we're really, really delighted that you join us, and we can't wait to hear some of the cool tools you have for us.
Excellent. Should I dive right in?
Yeah, why don't you just dive right in? Tell us about the first
Tell us
tool.
your first one.
Yeah.
Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is microphones. I've been making YouTube videos long enough, and they've got, I think, enough production quality that folks now ask me for advice. And the thing that they ask me is, what camera do you have? And if there's any photographers in the audience or friends of photographers, you know this perennial question, what camera do you have? And the answer is that the camera is not the most important thing. It seems like it's the question we should be asking, but it's really not about the camera, especially for video. So if you're making an explainer video, if you're making a live stream, if you're hosting an online event, if you're making a video pitch for something at work, if you're making a wild invention in a YouTube video, people will forgive, your viewers will forgive lousy and shoddy video. It could be grainy. You could forget to color correct. It could be slightly out of focus. People will forgive that, but for some reason, our brains will not forgive shoddy audio. If the audio is scratchy, if there's too much wind noise, if there's too many popping sounds, from the papas and the tapas saturating the condenser mic pressure wave. People will just not forgive it. They will get frustrated, almost angry. They will turn it off. You could be watching a video that has no video at all, which is a podcast. That's what we're listening to, and yet hopefully you're enjoying it. So really, it's most important to have good audio. And to have good audio, you need to have a microphone, and you need to have the microphone close to the source. If you take an iPhone video on a windy beach 6 feet away from someone who's talking, good luck hearing them. But if you take that same scenario, just an iPhone camera, or an Android camera, which gets pretty good video these days, and you add a microphone so you can actually hear what the person is saying, suddenly you have what feels like a professional video. I have tried many different kinds of microphones and wireless packs, and I want to recommend a setup to your listeners.
And these are ones that plug into an iPhone if you wanted to. Yes,
you can use these with your iPhone, your Android phone. You can also use these with the more expensive DSLR camera, cinematic video camera. You can use them with a mirrorless camera. So there's several different ways to connect this to your video recording device.
Cool. Tell us about it.
Sure. So I've tried a number of wireless transmitter packs. What I did is I went to the camera store. I rented every kind of wireless pack I could, and I tried them all. And by far, the best one for the buck for me was the Rode Wireless Go. Rode is a company. They make microphones. They're famous for it. And they started making this cute tiny little square transmitter and receiver kit. And instead of operating at, I'm going to get a little technical here, but instead of operating at 900 or 915 megahertz, which is pretty saturated bandwidth, they use a 2.4 gigahertz spread spectrum. I've never had this go out on me. Unless I was 500 feet away from the transmitter.
So could you just describe it in brief? They're like two little squares. One is at the camera, one that you carry with you, and then there's no wires. That's the beauty of this, is that there's not a wire from the microphone to the camera or your phone. It's done wirelessly.
Exactly. You put the transmitter in your pocket. You have the microphone snake up inside your shirt, just like you'll see on television news broadcasts. And then the receiver is plugged into whatever you're recording your video with, your phone, your DSLR camera, your mirrorless camera, what have you. And this system just works flawlessly. The battery lasts 3 hours. It never experiences any dropouts or crackling noise or static. It's wonderful. And especially, it's a very low cost. Traditionally, you'd expect to pay $500 for a good set. But depending on which sort of options you get, you're talking closer to $200 with this setup, which is just unbelievable.
And there's another advantage to it, which is that it's totally plug and play. A lot of the fancier gear might require you kind of picking up the right frequency and all this kind of stuff. But this one, you take the 2 cubes, you plug one cube into whatever you're recording in, the other cube you carry with you, you put in your pocket, and then you just hit the front buttons and they sync automatically and you never have to think about it again. Exactly.
There's no Bluetooth pairing. There's no making sure you're on the right channel. None of those typical things that will sort of vex you as you're starting out will happen to you with this setup.
So it's like a replacement for a wire? Is that kind of all it is in essence?
Well, it's not just a replacement for the wire. Actually, as he's saying, it's a really high quality. So you could put up a wire, but I use it even when I'm close by, just because the quality and the ease of connecting is so simple.
And what are the input-output ports on it? Are they 3.5 millimeter jack compatible? I'm just trying to get my...
Oh, yeah, good question. So on the transmitter side, that's what you would have about your person. That's what you'd plug your microphone into.
Okay.
And that has a 1/8-inch, it's called TRS or tip ring sleeve. It's what looks like a traditional headphone jack that you would plug into your laptop or smartphone.
Gotcha.
And I've got in the recommendations list, I've got a specific lavalier mic. It's also made by Rode. It's very inexpensive for the high quality audio that it produces. It's definitely broadcast quality.
Yeah. There is a built-in microphone to the other cube that you carry, so that if you needed to, if you didn't have a lab mic for some reason, you can, in a pinch, use the built-in microphone for that transmitting unit.
Yeah, I've personally had not such great luck. That microphone doesn't sound nearly as good. It sounds a little scratchy somehow and a little tinny. However, I have used that for recording Foley or sound effects. You know, the noise of your feet crunching in the gravel or whatever little sound effects you might want to add to your video. And then I should mention that on the receiver side, that's the end that plugs into your camera or your smartphone. There's 2 options. There's a line level 2.5 or 3.5 millimeter audio out, and that looks like your standard headphone jack again. That can plug directly into some smartphones, and it can plug directly into most cinematic video cameras, camcorders, DSLR cameras. But there's a second option. If you have an Apple iOS device, like an iPad or iPhone, there's a special cable called the Rode SC15 that will directly connect the receiver to your iOS device in a digital format rather than an audio format, and it's fewer adapters to deal with, and it's a more reliable connection. It also powers your receiver, so it'll never lose battery.
And then you use a recording app on the iPhone to record the signal?
Yes. If you're recording video, you can just use your camera app. Or you could go a little bit fancier. A lot of YouTubers use something called Filmic Pro. It's a free app. It's also a paid version that I happen to like that unlocks some of the hidden features of your phone's camera. Or you could just use an audio recording app. Rode has one that's designed for their system, which is called Rode Recorder, which I use a lot.
But the common way is for someone to be filming with their phone and then using this as an auxiliary audio source. and so you are recording the audio as you're recording the video.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, that's really great. That's and I highly endorse the Rode Wireless Go 1 or 2. It's a bargain and a great piece of equipment. What's another tool that you'd like to tell us about?
Sure. All right. Next up, I'm going to go a little controversial. There's a drink that is a meal replacer out there called Soylent. If you remember the movie Soylent Green, and Soylent Green ended up being people, this drink is a little bit healthier and much less. There's much less human content in the drink. So this is a meal replacer. It comes in a bunch of different flavors like vanilla and chocolate and strawberry. I happen to drink strawberry. And it has exactly 1/5 of all of your daily nutrients that you need, your protein and your vitamin B and your everything. The taste is not. It doesn't taste like a fine French sorbet, or it doesn't taste like the best meal you've ever had. It tastes good, but not too flavorful. It's slightly bland. But I lead a busy life. If you're a doer, if you take action, if you're a maker, if you're a media producer, throughout your day, you could take an hour break for lunch. You could take an hour in the morning to kind of prepare your lunch and breakfast for the day. Or you can just grab 2 of these bottles. And what I find is that every day where I have one of these for lunch or maybe one of these for breakfast and lunch, I'm saving an hour of time in meal prep and in cleaning up dishes, things like that. And Kevin, Mark, you two do a lot. You can do a lot in 1 hour, especially if you have consistently an extra hour every day of your life. And so for me, it's trading a little bit of flavor. I mean, I like the things, but it's trading a little bit of flavor. It is slightly bland for a heck of a lot of time back in your life. And for me, that's an easy decision. These little bottles are $3. They taste good. They don't taste amazing, but they taste good. And I can't tell you how much I love having an extra 365 hours in a year to do cool projects.
So you have it every day?
Yeah, I have one for breakfast. I usually have the one that is mixed with coffee, so it kind of functions as my coffee and my breakfast. And then I have one for lunch, and then I cook a real dinner. It's a real treat at the end of the day to have solid edible food.
This is so interesting. I imagine if it's $3, so you're like saving a lot of money too on groceries.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And are you ordering these online, or is there a kind of a local place you pick them up? Do they have to be refrigerated? What's the status in terms of that?
Yeah, they're great questions. They're shelf stable. They don't need to be refrigerated. They do taste a little better if you refrigerate them, but I currently don't bother. I guess I'm really jazzed about having all this extra time on my schedule. You can order them online, or they're sold in some stores. There is free shipping though, so ordering them online from the Soylent website doesn't set you back any shipping cost.
Did you have a favorite flavors?
I had a lot of this over the past few years, and almost every single day I have a strawberry Soylent for lunch. I tried the other flavors, the chocolate, the creamy chocolate. There's a mint chocolate. There's a vanilla. And I liked them initially, but over time I sort of said, you know what, I'm just going to have my favorite one, which is strawberry every day, until one day I decided to do something different.
Okay, strawberry.
That is fascinating. Soylent.
What is the base source of the protein? Is it soy? Is that where the soy lint comes from?
Yes, there is a bit of soy in Soylent. If you, for some reason, have a sensitivity to soy, there are other drinks out there. There's one called Huel, which I'm sure tastes great, but I just haven't tried it. I can't get past the name Huel. It sounds like I'm coughing up a hairball. But I think Huel is based on pea protein. And there's a few other ones out there that use different kinds of protein. So depending on your diet or any kinds of food sensitivities or allergies you may have, or just preference.
As I recall, in the movie Soylent Green, and I won't spoil it, this won't be a spoiler, but it was advertised as, I think, high energy plankton from the sea.
There's, to my knowledge, no plankton in
Okay,
this one.
that's too bad.
It's entirely vegetarian or vegan.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking up now here. It says soy protein, I think, is the first ingredient after water, which makes sense. Okay, so and they're you said about $3 a bottle and all kinds of flavors.
Yeah, the company also does some pretty good philanthropy stuff. I happen to know the person that's currently in charge of their corporate philanthropy, and they do a lot for food banks, and so that's important to me.
And I see they have a powdered form. I guess if you were backpacking and still wanted to have your Sterlant.
Yeah, the powdered form is also cheaper. If you want to save even more money and go down to $1 a meal, I think you can do the powder. But for me, it wasn't. I like the cost savings, but I love the time savings. So the powder represents time removed from my plate. I want time put back on my plate.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Unless you're willing to just spoon eat the powder.
So this seems like another time management thing. Your next pick is the Boomerang email plugin.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So I used to be on a big Inbox Zero productivity tool kick, and some of them turned out to just be fads in my life. But one of the ones that really stuck was this email plugin you can get called Boomerang. And here's how it works. If you are sending someone a message and you want to make sure that they reply, there's a little button that you click, or a keypad if you're a hotkeys person, that you can press. And a little menu will come up and you say, hey, I want this to reappear in my inbox in 2 days, a week, a year, 10 years from now, in 30 minutes, whatever time you want. Whether or not that person responds to me, or I want it to reappear in my inbox if that person hasn't responded to me. And that might sound like a niche feature, but here's some of the ways that works. If you are asking somebody for something and you don't want to drop the ball, what do? A lot of folks will leave that email, maybe they'll copy themselves or somehow they'll leave that email in their inbox, and you end up with an inbox full of things that you can't really take action on. So you open your email and you go read this and that and the other email, and you find out, oh, I'm waiting. And you waste a half an hour just reading through emails that you can't really take action on, looking for something that you can actually be productive on. With Boomerang, it gets that out of your inbox. So if I'm emailing, let's see, I work at a university right now. Let's say I'm emailing a professor. I want to know if she will participate in an NSF grant application. I want to make sure she gets back to me, or he gets back to me. And so I say, hey, Boomerang, bring this back to my inbox in 3 days if that person hasn't responded. I can also send an email later. Let's say it's 3 a.m. and I'm sending an email. I don't want people to know that I'm working at 3 a.m. because then expectations shift in a way that I don't want them to. So I can say, send this at 8 a.m. and let them think that I'm awake and productive at 8 a.m. Instead of snoozing, which is what I'm actually doing. So I love this email app. It's totally free. As far as I know, you can install it into Gmail. There's a mobile version you can put on your phone. And it really makes sure that I don't drop the ball on things while simultaneously keeping all that stuff I can't take action on out of my inbox.
So if it's free, who makes it and how is it being kept up?
It's at boomerangapp.com. So check that out. And there's a paid version.
Okay.
And the paid version has a couple extra features.
Okay. All right. Well, so there is the paid version, to let that be known. And this is the freemium version. So it's a plugin for Gmail then. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. The real magic happens on their server. And so they have a client, if you will, that is a Gmail plugin. They also have an iPhone app and an Android app. So there's a couple different ways that you can get this into your email. I
think my assistant uses it because she talks about that. I didn't realize that was. I thought that was something that was built into Gmail, but maybe there's a similar function that's built into Gmail.
Oh, good question. There is a send later feature that Gmail made, that Google made in response to Boomerang. Boomerang caught on like wildfire, and Google added this send later functionality, which is good. I can choose to send an email later, but that other functionality, the functionality of bring this back to my inbox if the person hasn't responded, for some reason, Google hasn't opted to do that. And if you're an organized...
when you say bring it back to your inbox, is that where it appears? It appears as a message. The message that you sent appears, or what appears back in your box?
Yeah, exactly. So you'll see, let's say I send an email to Mark, and I say, Mark, I loved being on the podcast. I wanted to know if you would be on my podcast. Don't worry,
Mark does not respond, and then until he responds, in 2 days you get a notice saying Mark hasn't responded, and you get the same message back.
I get the same message back, yeah, along with a little note that says Boomerang brought this back to your inbox. Okay,
that sounds really useful.
Yeah, if you're an organized person, if you're responsible for things, if you're the person who can't let that ball drop, if you're a Virgo, if you're into that whole thing, you will love this app.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I don't work with Gmail directly. I have I'm now with Apple Mail on my desktop. Would it work with Apple Mail as well? Which actually goes through, my mail actually goes through Gmail Suite. I don't know. It's very complicated, but I guess you need to have the...
I don't think they have the plugin yet for Apple's mail program. Yeah. They do have a program for Outlook, which is common in a business environment.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about your next pick.
All right. So with all this extra free time that you're going to have, drinking Soylent and boomeranging your emails, I do a lot of creative engineering projects, things like invisibility shields. I've worked in groups on computerized waterfalls, musical Tesla coils. My latest project, I'm going to talk about in a bit, is where I attached a jet engine to my back and rode around on roller skates to see how fast I could roller skate. And so for my last cool tool, I wanted to let your audience know that you can buy a jet engine. It turns out that in the United States, there's no restrictions on the sales of jet engines, and these can be very small jet engines that fit in the palm of your hand, all the way up to things that you could hug, like a barrel-chested man size. And they are a little bit dangerous, but if you're into making things and you're into a little bit of danger, or at least the appearance of danger, and maybe not actual danger, you can now buy jet engines from the radio-controlled aircraft world. They come as small as a few pounds of thrust and as big as over 100 pounds of thrust.
And what makes a jet engine a jet engine?
Yes, a jet engine is an external combustion engine. So if you have a gas-powered vehicle, it is an internal combustion engine, which of course means that the tiny explosions happen inside of the engine. With a jet engine, you are exploding a fuel-air mixture, and the pressure wave that comes out of that sort of constant explosion pushes these very, very hard metal blades, and that part of the jet engine is called the turbine, and those blades are called turbine blades. And those blades will help push the air faster and faster in one direction, and you will generate thrust. And the cool thing about the jet engine versus other kinds of jet engines that you can put on a small vehicle is that the engine continues to put out the same amount of thrust no matter what its speed is. So what does that mean? Think about a manual transmission car. You put it in first gear, and you can only go so fast before your engine just isn't going to go any faster. It's only going to go 3,000 RPM. You're only going to go 10, 15 miles an hour in first gear. And so what do? You switch up to second gear. Well, you keep doing that, but eventually you run out of gears, and there's sort of a top speed that you can hit that's really limited, not by the fuel, not by the shape of the vehicle or anything like that, but merely by the transmission. That's limiting the top speed of your vehicle. A jet engine, however, keeps pushing with the same amount of push, the same amount of force, no matter how fast you're going. So you could be going 300 miles an hour. It's still pushing you faster and faster. So at some point, you do have to let off the throttle. But you don't need a transmission. It's just this one thing that generates a push. And they're extremely loud. So if you're kind of an adventurous, love the look of danger kind of person, you can now attach a jet engine to your canoe or your back while you go roller skating. And it's just a fun thing to kind of explore and think about. And
with the fuel, is it using jet fuel as an engine, or can it use regular gasoline or kerosene? What does it burn?
Yeah, you can use different kinds of fuels in these RC hobby-style jet engines. Some of them accept diesel, some of them accept kerosene, some of them accept jet fuel. And the secret that I'll let you in on is that jet fuel, which sounds incredibly dangerous, and if you watch action films with explosions in them, looks incredibly dangerous. Jet fuel is actually just slightly more refined kerosene, and it has a lot less explosive power than gasoline. So a fire safety expert will say, hey, gasoline, that has a lower flash point, lower temperature at which it generates enough vapors so that it could be explosive, and it has a much higher vapor pressure, meaning it produces more vapor even at a relatively atmospheric regular temperature like you'd see out where you are. So gasoline's a lot more dangerous than jet fuel. It sounds counterintuitive because you hear jet fuel and you think, oh boy.
Yeah. And how much do these cost? What's the range?
These jet engines will only set you back either somewhere in the $500 to $5,000 range, depending on how big you go. So for all the makers out there, start saving up. It's incredibly fun. And they maintain their resale value. So if you want to pick one up for cheap or get rid of yours and get your money back, eBay is a great place to find those.
And in fact, Ian, you made a video of your experience putting a jet engine on your back and then riding across it in a really big parking lot with roller skates. And tell us, so you have a YouTube channel. Tell us a little bit about that, and tell us about that experience of actually strapping one of these on your back and managing to live to tell us about it.
Exactly. Great segue. I got one of these jet engines, and also during the pandemic, like many people, I got more into roller skating than I had been. I've roller skated on and off over the past couple decades, but I finally bought a pair of roller skates. And I've just been enjoying the exercise and being outside, and you can still maintain social distance while roller skating. In fact, if you're not, you're going to have a hard time roller skating. So it's like the perfect pandemic sport, if you will. And I thought, you know what? I bought this jet engine and I need to figure out what to do with it. So I did a little Instagram poll, and I asked people who like my projects, what would you like me to attach this jet engine to? And I gave people some options. I was thinking, it'd be fun to make an Adam West era Batman pedal car and kind of attach this jet engine where the jet engine goes in the original Batmobile car. It might be fun to put this on a kids' Power Wheels vehicle, those little electric cars that kids ride around in. Because the massively overpowered kids' toy theme maintains my interest. Right. But what people wanted was they wanted me to put the jet engine on my back and see how fast I could roller skate Wile E. Coyote style. So that's the project I did, and it was thrilling.
And what size engine did you have?
The engine I've got, it weighs about 5 pounds. It produces 30 kilograms, which is 66 pounds of thrust. And so if you're an engineer, you remember your first equation you learned, F equals ma, force equals mass times acceleration. So initially you start off a little slowly and you go faster and faster. And the only thing limiting you, because it's a jet engine, is drag coefficient. So how much is the wind pushing against you? So the theoretical top speed is somewhere around 100 miles an hour. But, guys, my body was designed for typing. So you look at me. I went about 17 miles an hour. But I've got some friends who do roller derby. And these women went a lot faster than I did. One of them went 32 miles per hour on a jet-powered roller skate, which was amazing and worth a watch.
Wow, that's really cool. No, I think you're absolutely right that it's really, what's the word, inspiring to know that you could buy a jet engine, even a small one particularly, for some weird project. These are called CRX, I think is the name of the company that's selling these.
Yeah, that's the vendor that I used. The manufacturer that I happened to buy was Swiwin, and I like them. They have an electric starter. Some of these things you have to start with propane, or you start them with air pressure. And it's a manual, annoying process to do that each time. Why not just get one that can start on its own? Just like a car, you just press a button or turn a key and it starts. So the auto start feature is in I believe all of the Swiwin jet engines. And so that's mainly why I went with them. But there's other competitors. There's JetCat, there's KingTech. They're all pretty good, but I would recommend looking for that auto start feature.
And you said you began by saying that these were constructed for the radio-controlled airplane hobby world. Is that right?
Yeah. So if you want to get into an expensive hobby, that's a
Make your own radio-controlled jet engine or drone.
Yeah, these things they're not even small. These things could be half scale. I mean, they could probably carry a person. It's amazing to watch people with this hobby. I didn't want to leave the ground with my jet engine. I'm happy here. I'm a terrestrial animal. Really is what I am. I don't take to the skies. Maybe a little bit of an amphibian. I mean, I've been seen in a lake here and there, but definitely not in the sky. I want to just leave that to the experts.
That sounds good. Well, Ian, that's a good place to wrap it up. I want to thank you so much for joining us, and I encourage people to check out your YouTube channel. People can do that by going to our show notes at cool-tools.org, and they'll see the links to all of the tools that you talked about, as well as links to find out more about Ian and what he's up to. So, Ian, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin and Mark. This was fun.
Hey, everybody. It's Mark from the Cool Tools Podcast. I want to thank you for being a listener to Cool Tools. And I also would like to let you know about our Patreon page. If you would like to support the Cool Tools show, as well as our video channel, the website, and all the newsletters that we do, you can go to patreon.com/cooltools. That's just one word, Cool Tools, and pledge any amount you want. You could even pledge $1 a month. Every little bit helps. We have editors, we pay for transcribing costs, we pay our reviewers. Every bit of money that you contribute goes towards supporting the show. I'd like to give a shout out to our supporters of the Cool Tools podcast. This week, I'd like to thank the following Patreon supporters: Bill Schuler, Bob Kay, Brian Pelly, Carl D. Patterson, Chad Cosby, Chris Wieland, Chris Weirstook, Craig Tooker, Dan O'Brien, Dean Putney, Danelle Cunningham, Evan Barker, Graham Medlin, Hans Riesbeck, Helen Hegedus, Jerry Kearns, Jim Lesko, Jim Spofford, John Pollock, John Burdenbaugh, Keith O., Ken Altman, Les Howard, Lauren Bast, Mock Nerd, Malton Make, Mark Goebel, Matt Gromes, Michael Douglas, Michael Jones, and Michael Pecorini. Thanks to all of you for supporting the Cool Tools show. We really appreciate it.